great to see you all here supporting the cause of Labor. I've just been up at the Westmead Hospital, and the Westmead Hospital is a symbol of what good Labor governments do. Do you know the story of Westmead? The story of Westmead is this. Gough Whitlam back in 1974 allocated $4 million because he believed the people of Greater Western Sydney deserved a first-class hospital. Gough Whitlam was right. Every Labor Prime Minister since then has been right in making sure that we make Westmead and Greater Western Sydney have every health and hospital service that the people of this great region deserve, and that's each and every one of you. Now friends, do we have some nurses here? Put your hands up, nurses. Good to see you all here. I've just been talking to some nurses up at Westmead. Fantastic people, doing fantastic work. Your Australian government, since we've been in office, has added 20,000 new nurses to the Australian health system. And they do a fantastic job. My mother was a nurse. My sister is a nurse. My brother is a nurse. My sister-in-law is a nurse. And they asked me, Kevin, what have you done with your life? That's a fair question. Nurses are in the front line of what we do. 20,000 new nurses.
We teach
nurses. When you come to...
Yes, we teach everyone.
You teach nurses?
We teach nurses.
I'm going to come to you folks in a minute. Do we have any teachers here? Nurses and teachers are the backbone of modern Australia. No teachers and we have a bad school system. Great teachers, we have a first-class school system. You are in the vanguard of building the modern Australia, each and every one of you. Teachers, nurses, the fabric of our health and hospital system and our education system. Friends, we come to a critical point of this 2013 election campaign, and it's about a series of basic choices. And the choices are these. Are we going to build Australia's future, or are we going to allow Mr. Abbott to cut and destroy Australia's future? Are you in support of building Australia's future? You want us to build the hospitals of Australia's future? Yes! You want us to build the schools for Australia's future? Yes! You want us to build and train the nurses for Australia's future? Yes! Then you must support this Australian Labor government. Yes! We stand for building Australia's future. Mr. Abbott stands for cutting Australia's future. Cutting to the bone. Let me give you an example or two. We are going to build Australia's future education system through the Better Schools Plan. The Better Schools Plan puts millions of dollars into each school across our vast nation. We are building the Better Schools Plan. Mr. Abbott is going to cut billions of dollars out of the schools of Australia. We build the schools of the future, he cuts the schools of the future. When it comes to parents who want to provide for their kids, basic uniforms, basic books, the things you need for your kid to prevail at school, we decided to help. We decided to say, you need to have a school kids bonus. For working families across a kid's career, that means $15,000 in your pocket. Mr. Abbott says he's going to take that $15,000 out of your pocket, and out of your pocket, and out of your pocket. We support the families of the future through the school kids bonus. Mr. Abbott cuts the school kids bonus so that working families are left to fend for themselves. We build the schools of the future, he cuts the schools of the future. We are building our families and their struggle with cost of living pressures for the future, he cuts for the future. Now friends, today Mr Abbott has come out with what he describes as his paid parental leave scheme. Now let me say to you, Mr Abbott has always been a person who he says honours his word. Mr Abbott said a few years ago, Australia will have a paid parental leave scheme over my dead body. That's what Mr Abbott said.
Fair enough.
He seems to have changed his views. He changed his views because he's a person with deep conviction. He believes in being consistent over time. He believes that what I stand for, if I'm Tony Abbott, is that over my dead body will we have a paid parental scheme. He then looks at some polling research and says people want it, and he says we will have a paid parental leave scheme. Consistency, consistency, consistency. Pigs might fly, pigs might fly, pigs might fly. Let's just think a little bit about this paid parental leave scheme which Mr Abbott's been talking about today. It's pretty interesting really, because what he says is he's going to spend $6 billion on this. At the same time, he's not telling each and every one of you where his $70 billion worth of cuts to jobs, to health, to education is going to come from. $70 billion of cuts, he says zero. $6 billion worth of spend on his new PPL scheme. That's all fine, he says. Well, it's a bit like this, you know. What Mr Abbott is saying to the people of Australia is this. For some Australians, I'm going to put $5 into their pocket. For every other Australian, I'm going to take $50 out of their pocket. There's a big difference between taking $50 out of all Australians' pockets and pretending that you're committed to putting $5 in their pocket. You know what it's called? It's called a sleight of hand. And that is what Mr Abbott is on about. You know something, if he was fair dinkum about paid parental leave, don't you just think that in the 12 years he was a member of the Howard government, they would have done something about this? No. They waited for an Australian Labor government to get in and for us to produce a fully costed, affordable paid parental leave scheme. And guess what? As of today, our Labor government's paid parental leave scheme has supported 300,000 Australian families. So we are building Australia up. Mr Abbott is tearing Australia down. We are building up our schools, building up our hospitals, building up our families through the school kids bonus, building also an affordable, sustainable paid parental leave scheme which helps hundreds of thousands of families. We're the builders, they are the tearers down. We build up, they cut down. That is in their DNA. Building the country is in our DNA. Building up and cutting down just doesn't stop there with our schools and with our hospitals. It also has a lot to do with what the Deputy Prime Minister's been on about as well. It's called infrastructure. Building what we need for the future. The urban rail networks we need for the future. And building the national broadband network for the future as well. We're building the national broadband network. What are they going to do? Cut pieces. Now we believe that every Australian, doesn't matter whether you come from a rich family or a poor family, doesn't matter whether you come from the middle of Sydney or Greater Western Sydney, doesn't matter whether you come from the Queensland country like I come from or in the middle of Brisbane. Doesn't matter whether you're from the bush or whether you're from the city. We have a basic Labor value. What is that value? Every Australian should have access to reliable, high-speed and affordable broadband for the future.